So turning to the next item of business, we have a debate on motion 24038 in the name of Bill Kidd on Scottish Parliamentary Standards, Sexual Harassment and Complaints Process Bill. Could I invite all members who wish to contribute to press their request to speak buttons, and I call on Bill Kidd to speak to and move the motion.
Thank you, President Officer. Now, last September, the Parliament agreed to the Standards, Procedures and Public Appointments Committee's proposal for a committee bill which would allow the Commissioner for Ethical Standards in Public Life in Scotland to investigate complaints of past sexual harassment made about members of the Parliament in respect to behaviour towards members of their own staff. The bill and its accompanying documents were introduced last November, and I'm delighted to be here to speak to the Chamber today to invite the Parliament to agree to pass this. The bill also removes a default time limit for making complaints to the Commissioner and removes any requirement for the complainant's signature. The bill, though important, is actually fairly narrow in scope. If passed, it opens up a complaint route for a member's own staff, including any staff employed jointly by that member with other members under a pooling arrangement in cases of alleged sexual harassment by that MSP. It does not retrospectively apply a new substantive standard of conduct. It has never been acceptable or lawful for MSPs to sexually harass their employees. The bill is the result of work initiated by the Parliament in 2017 to address sexual harassment after press reports that there were issues that required to be addressed within public institutions. Since then, a series of changes have been made to the Code of Conduct for MSPs with the aim of ensuring that MSPs, MSP staff and parliamentary staff who experience sexual harassment can be assured that their complaint will be investigated independently and in confidence. A joint working group on sexual harassment was established by the Parliament in February 2018. It was made up of representatives from all parties, as well as senior members of parliamentary staff and a representative from Engender. The Joint Working Group reported in December 2018 and made a series of recommendations following consultation on its recommendations. Its report was referred by the Scottish Parliamentary Corporate Body to, to my committee to implement the recommendations relating to the standards regime in the Parliament. The committee considered the Joint Working Group's recommendations before consulting with all MSPs on proposed revisions to the Code of Conduct to implement two of the Working Group's key recommendations. These recommendations were that no time limit should be applied to complaints of sexual harassment, and members should be held to account for their behaviour towards their own staff in the same way as their behaviour towards anyone else working in the building. The Joint Working Group also wished to see consistency of approach to all investigations of allegations of sexual harassment by MSPs. Following its consultation, the committee recommended and the Parliament agreed a number of changes to the Code of Conduct. These made it possible for the Commissioner for Ethical Standards in Public Life to investigate complaints about an MSP's conduct towards Parliament staff or the staff of other members. Such complaints had previously been termed excluded complaints and subject to different procedures, and only if these procedures fail to reach a resolution could they then be referred to the Commissioner. The Code changes also brought members' treatment of their own staff within the Code for the first time. This provision agreed by the Parliament prohibits MSPs from behaving in a manner towards their own staff that includes bullying, harassment, including sexual harassment, or any other inappropriate behaviour. Although clearly never acceptable or lawful, sexual misconduct by an MSP towards his or her own staff was explicitly prohibited by the Code of Conduct from that moment forward. However, this bill is needed so that complaints can be made about historic conduct by MSPs, including former MSPs, towards their staff at the time of the conduct in question. The bill is necessary because the Act governing the remit of the Standards Commissioner only allows her to investigate breaches of a relevant provision of the Code of Conduct, of standing orders or of legislation relating to members' interests in place at the time of the alleged misconduct. The Joint Working Group also specifically recommended the removal of an extra barrier to the bringing forward of complaints which are made more than a year after the complainer becomes aware of the misconduct. The committee believes that this measure should be applied to complaints of any breaches and not just those relating to sexual harassment, so that all complaints are on an equal footing. This bill removes some of the barriers to complaining about sexual misconduct by MSPs and places potential complainers on a more equal footing if they decide to take that step. I was very encouraged by the cross-party support this bill enjoyed in previous debates, and I hope I can rely on your support at decision time. I move this motion in my name. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Kidd. And can I call on the Minister Graham Day to open for the Government?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. This morning I attended a meeting of the Standards, Procedures and Public Appointments Committee, in part to offer the Government's thoughts on procedural changes the committee has worked on throughout the current session. And I noted the sheer volume of work that committee has undertaken. The committee bill before us today is a key strand of that work. This bill is certainly not the largest one to be scrutinised this session, but the Government would argue it is amongst the most important. The bill is also one of the products to emerge from the Parliament's wider work in response to sexual harassment. At stage one, I and many others highlighted the importance of sending out a clear message that the Parliament would not tolerate any individual suffering such abuse. The bill plays its part towards achieving that aim. The subject matter of the bill is for the Parliament. However, the Government welcomes the consensus around the bill throughout its passage. That has sent a powerful message. The judgment of the Joint Working Group, as endorsed and delivered by the committee, has resulted in a bill that has remained free from any attempt to amend it, a characteristic that the Government considers only serves to further reinforce that the Parliament stands as one on this issue. As I mentioned at stage one, ensuring our rules and practices in this area are fair, sensitive and supportive is essential for an entity at the centre of Scottish democracy. Presiding Officer, you'll be pleased to know I'll refrain from rehearsing the fine detail of the bill's proposed changes to the Parliamentary Standards Commission Act 2002. Suffice to say, however, that the Government considers the bill will serve as a welcome enhancement of the complaints framework. I should also note the committee's work to amend Section 7 of the MSP Code of Conduct. The changes subsequently agreed by Parliament earlier this week ensure that Section 7 of the Code covers members' conduct towards individuals external to the Parliament. That approach is, of course, essential to the aim of assuring anyone engaging with parliamentarians that they can challenge any behaviour they deem to be inappropriate or unacceptable. In conclusion, Presiding Officer, I'd like to commend the committee, its clerks and legal advisers for their work on this important bill, the terms of which are fully supported by the Government, and I look forward to hearing the views of other members. Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much, Minister. Can I call Oliver Mundell to be followed by Neil Findlay? Oliver Mundell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Given the time available and the broad consensus that exists, I do not plan to speak for long or in any great detail, but I do feel, given the subject matter, that it is important on behalf of the Scottish Conservatives to put our support for this bill on the record. While it's neither the time nor the place to go into the details of individual past incidents that have led us to today, we must all recognise that the culture which was allowed to exist in our national parliament, just as in many other aspects of our society, was unacceptable and fell far below the standard required and expected. I'm grateful to all those within the Parliament and on the committee who have worked hard to make sure our procedures and processes are fit for purpose. There's no room for complacency, but these changes do represent a step forward, and by extending the Commissioner's remit and by removing the one-year time limit, the bill also allows for any concerns to be properly and independently investigated. I would urge all colleagues to support these straightforward but much-needed changes at decision time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Mundell. And can I call Neil Findlay before Gil Patterson? Neil Findlay.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. And this week of all weeks, it's important to reiterate that there's no place for sexist, racist, homophobic or any other such behaviour in our society, and especially in our national parliament. The results of the sexual harassment survey that was issued in this parliament has to be a watershed moment. Never again can this institution be in a position where members of staff feel threatened, uncomfortable, under pressure, victimised or subject to any other such behaviour by MSPs or indeed anyone else they meet during their working day. The fact that over 300 people reported they had experienced sexual harassment while working in this Parliament is truly shocking. And what is worse is that they said they had little confidence in the Parliament's procedures for dealing with it. That is simply not good enough. People have gone through the detail of the bill. We've discussed it to death, so I don't intend going over that. But I think this is a very straightforward bill. The committee has dealt with it in a very straightforward way with no need for amendments. I don't think there's very much more to add other than to say that I hope we all support the bill tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr Findlay. And can I call on Gil Patterson?
Many thanks, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Parliamentary Standard Sexual Harassment and Complaints Process Bill, once passed today at stage 3, will make a significant change to a shortcoming in the Scottish Parliamentary Standards Commissioners Act of 2002. We have been working on this since the early days of the Scottish Parliament. What the new Act will do is to make the Parliament a much fairer place to work and create an environment where there is less fear, bullying and intimidation of employees. And it will create a workplace more in keeping with the expectations of the Scottish people. It will also ensure that any sexual harassment predator cannot be absolved of their crimes by a technicality such as a time ban. The workplace will be a better place because everyone can be held accountable for their behaviour. The people of Scotland have an expectation that they will be able to live their lives free from abuse, harassment and intimidation, and it is imperative that the Parliament and our wider workplace demonstrates rules and practices that are fair and supportive of everyone, including our employees. The parliamentary report of the Joint Working Group on Sexual Harassment highlighted that although 30% of women employees surveyed had experienced sexual harassment or sexist behaviour, only a few had made a complaint. This sad state of affairs was undoubted, in my opinion, a result of victims trying to protect their employment and avoiding blighted careers and have an entirely unacceptable situation in a society committed to eradicating inequalities. This new Act complements work already being undertaken by the Parliament to tackle harassment and now incorporated into the MSP Code of Conduct, in that it includes the Working Group recommendations, which can only be delivered through primary legislation. Although far-reaching, the new legislative measures themselves are quite simple and straightforward and will be clear and transparent to everybody. In the previous legislation, there was essentially a situation where the Commissioner could rule a complaint by an MSP on staff or sexual harassment by the MSP in the period before January 2020 as inadmissible on the grounds that the conduct complained about did not breach a relevant provision. Fortunately, the new Act will extend the same rights to staff members as everyone else and end this abuse of their human rights. I'm sure, Presiding Officer, everybody will support this much needed change. In the current climate of historic sexual abuse claims and court cases worldwide, and the subject of harassment and abuse being very much in the public consciousness, it is a welcome provision in the new Act to eliminate time limits by barring investigation of sexual harassment or sexist behaviour or complaints. This provision will have a transformational impact on how historic allegations are dealt with and provided those victims previously unable to make a complaint come forward now and that their career prospects are being protected. The third change is a minor one to rules surrounding complainants' signatures, which will ease administrative process. The result of this Act, Presiding Officer, is we will make a much improved and more equal political institution, which will make the Scottish people proud of their Parliament. Thanks for the time, Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much, Mr Patterson. And can I now call on Patrick Harvey to wind up this debate?
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. And can I thank all those members, officials and everyone else who's contributed to the work on this bill and its scrutiny during the parliamentary process. I'm very happy to close the debate on behalf of the committee. Graham Day emphasised the consensus which has characterised this bill, and that he was pleased to see cross-party agreement not only on the principle but also on the detail of the bill. I hope that's something that's shared across the chamber. And this is a shorter debate than most stage 3 debates, and we saw some shorter speeches than most stage 3 debates see. But some important points were made. Oliver Mundell pointed out that though it's not a contentious bill, it does relate to important principles, and I agree that it's necessary that we acknowledge that. Neil Findlay reinforced that point and also recalled the results of the survey carried out by Parliament earlier in the session, results which I think, to be fair, should disturb us all. And Gail Patterson noted the number of people that survey suggested had chosen not to make complaints, perhaps for fear of harming their own careers. A situation that none of us should be willing to be satisfied by. And the bill does deliver on some of the recommendations made by the Joint Working Group. That Joint Working Group included members representing all the political parties. And I would hope that consensual start through to a consensual completion of this process demonstrates that the whole Parliament wants to address these long-standing and important injustices. So the bill has enjoyed cross-party support, and I think the principle that everyone has a right to work in an environment free of harassment, and that this legislation signals that we want to take the issue of sexual harassment seriously. I hope these points also enjoy the same cross-party support. The bill opens up a complaints route for historical conduct, which was previously unavailable to one group of staff, those who wish to complain that they've been harassed by the MSPs that they work for. It's not a question of retrospectively applying any new standard. It has never been acceptable to sexually harass a staff member, but the bill will allow Parliament to hold its members to account where sexual harassment of MSP staff has occurred or been alleged in the past. It opens up an additional route of independent investigation, supplementing the existing employment rights and remedies that staff have access. Parliament has, or certainly should have, and should aim to have, a zero tolerance approach to sexual harassment. Such conduct brings the Parliament into disrepute, and there is now a compelling public interest in bringing these past cases within the Commissioner's remit. Presiding Officer, I'm aware that Parliament will have perhaps more substantive speeches to be heard in the next debate, but I'm keen not to use all of the time available. I just want to close by once again thanking all those who've taken part in the development and the passage and the scrutiny of this bill, recognise its importance, and once again thank all members for the consensual approach that's been taken. And I'm pleased to close the debate on behalf of the committee and invite members to support the motion at decision time.
Thank you very much, Mr Harvey. And on that note, that concludes the Stage 3 debate on Scottish Parliamentary Standards Sexual Harassment and Complaints Process Bill. And at this point, we'll move on to the next item of business.